making the forest glow in the night. The light slowly faded away on a log, as a small blob started moving around. The slime, with its single eyeball, started looking around nervously, wondering where it was. All he could remember was scrolling through his phone last night, reading manga in his bed. Having unknowingly fallen asleep after that, realizing that he had suddenly died and come to another world after that. However, the slime did not care much about it. There were so many works with similar themes anyway, so everyone would accept the setting pretty quickly. For now, it was more important for him to confirm his surroundings and think about how to survive. Shouting out, he called to see if anyone was there besides him. Looking into the forest now lit up with red eyes, he realized that it was better to be quiet, noticing how there were bugs and miasma everywhere, but for some reason, he felt comfortable in this place. Breaking himself out of his delusion, as Slimy realized that now was not the time to enjoy this. Questioning what exactly he had reincarnated into, a notification window then popped up before him, showing that he was a level 1 slime mold, with even the system calling him a weak creature. Slimy was shocked that he had reincarnated as a slime mold of all things, but what's worse was that he was losing health as he spoke, and would die if he did not eat anything fast. Looking around, he wondered if there was something he could eat nearby, remembering that he had also seen his decomposer trait listed on the system window. He realized that slime molds were decomposers that could eat wood, thinking that he should try that first. Spreading his body on the wood, he was surprised by how slime molds ate. When he thought of the command, his body automatically wrapped around the target and started decomposing it. The taste of the wood was surprisingly acceptable to him, with it feeling like a soggy biscuit. After 15 minutes, he had eaten a huge chunk of the wooden log. Letting out a burp as he leveled up with his HP returning to full. The system informed him that he had gained 1 skill enhancement point. Looking at his window, Slimy recognized his decompose skill, but was confused by the pulsation skill. But he did not think much about it, choosing to put the point into the pulsation skill to see what it does. As the skill leveled up, Slimy's body started spreading around like webs, with each strand pulsating like blood vessels. He realized that pulsation made the protoplasm inside him flow back and forth, achieving the effect of displacement. It was a magical skill that, by activating, transmitted the knowledge automatically into his brain, although now he did not seem to have a brain anymore. Since eating up wood would not grant him any more experience points, he decided to go explore the ground, amazed at how he could magically change his body shape at will. Calling down the log, he saw a mushroom on the ground, thinking about how humans usually ended up in coffins if they ate random things, but as a slime mold, his instinct told him that it was a delicacy. Slowly making his way to the mushrooms, he found the shortest path and scooted over to it. Finally reaching the mushroom, he spread his body all over the fungus, climbing it with his tendrils. As he reached the top, Slimy declared happily that it was now time to eat. In a fancy suit, Slimy stood calling out to the pure little mushroom, saying how, after dating online for so long, they finally got to meet in reality. The little mushroom asked if it was really Slimy, as he assured her, trying to look handsome. But then the ugly little mushroom turned around, telling Slimy to come eat her, as Slimy realized that she was toxic, getting caught in the scam. The system informed him that he had been poisoned and was now losing health rapidly. Slimy panicked that he was about to die, detaching a part of himself as he threw himself away from the mushroom. His decomposition had failed, meaning he gained no experience points and had also lost body mass, lowering his max HP. But at least the poison effect was cleared. Slimy had been scared to death, but luckily, he had survived by cutting off his limb. Looking at the mushroom, he saw that a part of it had been decomposed by him too, disappointed that he couldn't eat all of it as he left. Telling it to wait as he would return after getting stronger to fight again, as he made his way back up the log. Settling into the crater he had made, he began eating it again. After 15 minutes, he had returned to his full health. With his HP revived, he crawled out again to look around, making his way through the ground using pulsation. He realized that as long as he could decompose a little bit of the mushroom each time, then disconnect and come back to eat the wood, he would be able to decompose the entire mushroom. Naming this project Move Mountain, he climbed back again on the mushroom. For as long as there was enough time, he believed that he could take it down. Returning to meet the toxic mushroom, she said how it was the 8th time already, asking if he was still planning on not giving up. But Slimy suddenly cuffed her, saying that she was now under arrest, shocking the mushroom. He had finally managed to cover the entire mushroom, successfully decomposing it as he gained experience and poison resistance from it. Looking at the new skill, he understood why the consumption had become more tolerable in the last few times. But he was still irritated that he had not leveled up, thinking how the mushroom should have given him a lot of experience points. However, this did not bother Slimy, as he was in a damp place which did not lack mushrooms, looking hungrily at his next targets. Slimy had eaten even more kinds of mushrooms, having leveled up after gaining experience. He had seen different mushrooms, such as the straw pipe, a safe and non-toxic one, as well as monk's cap mushroom, which was highly toxic but had given him better poison resistance, happily eating them all to turn them into his nutrients. After eating a lot, he had finally hit the limit where he could no longer gain experience points from eating mushrooms, deciding that he will pack the rest to take home. These mushrooms on his body not only served as rations, but also protected him. He had learned this from watching animal shows as a kid, where crabs used sea anemones to drive away octopuses. Similarly, he could use poisonous mushrooms to scare away monsters that would want to eat him, thinking that he was a genius to have solved this safety issue. Just then, Slimy noticed something as the wind violently blew around him. He saw a group of wasps carrying around what looked like chunks of meat. Looking at the giant hornets, he wondered if the poison mushrooms could scare them away, praying that they wouldn't see him. But then a tongue suddenly shot up, grabbing onto a hornet, and a green frog ate the giant monster in a single bite. Slimy was now horrified to see this, as another predator had shown up. The hornets then started attacking the frog, as Slimy observed this from the sidelines, seeing them fight. The wasps quickly approached the frog who had eaten their friend, stabbing into him with their stinger and biting him. Although the giant hornet's individual strength couldn't compare to the frog's, the swarm made up for the gap with numbers. Slimy wondered if the monsters ended up hurting each other. Could he go and pick up some scraps? As logically speaking, the experience from decomposing monster corpses should be much higher than decomposing dead wood and mushrooms. But as the hornets were attacking the frog suddenly opened his mouth, activating his skill-empowered tongue as he caught all the hornets in one go, eating them all. Slimy was shocked to see this, but suddenly an even bigger shadow appeared above the green frog, with a giant snake leaping at the frog with its mouth open. Blood splattered everywhere as a gigantic bird stood in the swamp, with its tail being the snake that had just eaten the frog. The bird then noticed Slimy staring at him with its giant eye. Slimy offered the bird his mushrooms, hoping that she would let him go as he had given up struggling with this disastrous start. The bird took a look at the mushrooms, raising its head as it flapped its wings, picking up the wind. Slimy was almost blown away by this, losing 30 HP from the gust alone, but the bird had flown away. Night still covered the swamp forest. Having put away all of his mushrooms, Slimy sat on the dead tree log, shaking. He had realized that he was currently at the very bottom of the food chain. But fortunately, because he was at the bottom, the gap in the food chain level was too wide, so he did not end up on the monster bird's menu. Looking at his system window again, she thought how even leveling up 4 times in one night did not change the fact that he was a weak creature. He wondered how he could survive and rise up as a slime mold. But he was tired now, hoping that this was all a dream, and when he woke up, he would be back in his blanket. But the next day came as the sun shone upon the swamp forest, as a green slime dripping from a mushroom like an acid. As the green liquid fell on Slimy, it immediately reduced his HP. Jumping up in pain, the system informed him that he had gained a new skill called Burst, which allowed him to move the flow of the ectoplasm in his body in one direction, generating thrust. Slimy fell on the ground, looking around as he wondered what had just happened. He then spotted a snail walking up to his mushrooms, using its skill acid liquor to melt them away. As the acid fell on the mushroom, it immediately sizzled. With the snail eating the liquid mushroom that was left, Slimy shouted at the snail, catching its attention. It was bad enough that it had stolen his mushrooms without asking, but dripping his saliva on his face and nearly melting him was unforgivable. The snail, however, continued eating, letting out a small whimper. Slimy said that playing the victim was not going to help it as the snail stood near the mushroom, still whimpering. Slimy thought about how they were fellow sufferers wandering the world, just trying to get a bite to eat. Seeing how pitiful it looked, he wondered if he was being too unforgiving. He let out a sigh, telling the snail that he was not going to make things hard for him. There were plenty of mushrooms, so sharing a little with them did not matter to him. He told the snail to go on and eat as it let out a happy noise, getting back to eating. Looking at this situation, it reminded him of the common friendship born from a fight shown in manga troupe. Slimy had started fantasizing about how he and the snail would party up, growing stronger together, with the probability of their survival rising. Going on adventures with the power of bonds to defeat the great demon king. To survive and become stronger in this world, companions were a necessary existence. He then moved towards the snail, saying how, since he was a low-level monster too, they should team up. They could look out for each other in the future, and he would make sure that the snail had enough mushrooms to eat. The snail looked at Slimy happily, but then suddenly leapt forward as he bit off a piece of his body, startling him. Seeing his HP drop, he thought about how it hurt a lot. Realizing that monsters in the other world did not care about feelings. In nature, there was only the simple relationship of eating or being eaten. He had been fooled by the snail's pitiful look, and although they were both low-level monsters, it seemed its strength was above his. Thinking that while he was eating, he should quickly leave. The snail then got up, looking at Slimy. Seeing it come after him, he realized that the snail did not plan on letting him go. Slimy decided that he would use his remaining skill points too, increasing the level of his pulsation skill. With full power, he rushed forward as the two crawled on the dead tree, managing to cover only a small distance in 3 minutes. The snail was still behind him, making Slimy panic at how its speed was just as fast as his. The snail then suddenly raised its head as its throat started swelling. With force, it poured out its acid liquor, splashing Slimy with it as he lost a lot of HP. Seeing his body split apart from the middle, he wondered if his consciousness automatically stayed in the larger half. But now was not the time to focus on that question, as he saw the snail towering above him with its mouth now open, dripping acid. The snail dove headfirst into Slimy's body, eating it. But the half in which Slimy's mind was had managed to get away, thinking how he would endure this ruthless snail, as it was never too late for a mold to take revenge. Having finished eating Slimy's body, the snail got back up again, focusing on Slimy once more. But he had managed to get hold of one of the mushrooms, and as the snail came to attack him again, Slimy shoved the mushroom into its mouth using his burst skill. Eating the toxic mushroom poisoned the snail, as it started wailing around in pain, before falling dead beside Slimy. The system notified him that he had defeated the snail and gained enough points to level up. Slimy was relieved that this had worked, having noticed before that even while having so many teeth, the snail always spat acid on the mushrooms to dissolve them before eating, as it did not have poison resistance itself. In any case, he had successfully defeated the first monster he had encountered after arriving in this world. Poking at the slime, he wondered what surprises awaited him when he would decompose the monster. Crawling onto its body, he thought how the snail's meat was sticky and disgusting. Trying to push these thoughts away, as snail meat was still meat, thinking about treating it like French food as he began decomposing it. But as soon as he started, a disgusting taste filled his mouth as he wondered what had just happened. It was absolutely awful, tasting salty and sour at the same time, reminding him of thick snot. A system window popped up, informing him that the decomposition had been terminated, so no experience point was gained. He did not want to just throw it away like that, as it would be such a waste. After all, this was a victory he had won at the risk of his life. If he did not make himself stronger as soon as possible, everything else would be meaningless. Reality no longer allowed him to be picky. It was either dying or enduring this. So he would just pinch his nose and swallow it down, activating his decompose skill back again, as the area was filled with the sounds of vomiting. Slimy had finally managed to eat it all, throwing the snail's shell away as he leveled up from having eaten it. The system was saying that he had been restored to his optimal condition, but after eating, he was feeling even worse than before. Looking at all the skills he had unlocked, Slimy was angry that he had not unlocked even a single offensive skill yet. But complaining was useless, as he could do nothing but be a slime mold. Besides, he was still not strong enough, thinking about how even if he had attack skills, he wouldn't dare to provoke the other monsters. It was the only way he could comfort himself in this situation. He then decided that he would continue to upgrade pulsation, putting more points in it. Without further delay, he wanted to test how much faster he had become. Moving around, he was easily able to cover a distance of 20 centimeters in a single second, thinking how he had indeed become faster. But it was still only 0.7 kilometers per hour, crying at how weak he was. A week had passed as Slimy left another dead tree he had eaten. Although this way of hiding had been uneventful, it had greatly helped him save up, having leveled up twice in the past week. Now that he had figured out the physical characteristics of a slime mold, it was time for him to find a new base. Dropping down to the ground, he decided that he would resupply one last time before setting off. Activating his pulsation skill, he started searching around the area. By flattening his body and dispersing it into veins, it was possible for him to traverse multiple directions all at once. And the higher his HP was, the more ectoplasm he had, giving him a wider range of exploration. Spreading his veins, he was able to cover quite a large area of the ground, finding white mushrooms and little mushrooms that he could eat. Now that he had mastered controlling his body, he could store things inside it or explore and decompose them simultaneously, greatly increasing his efficiency. He continued to eat mushrooms, but then suddenly ran into another snail, which he could not decompose. Feeling a jolt of pain from one of his tentacles, he brought it back, realizing that it was another snail by looking at his melted body. A stream of acid then appeared before him, startling Slimy, but fortunately, the speed of his body had increased as he narrowly avoided the attack. With the snail rushing at him, Slimy wondered if different snails had different skills, as this one seemed to move much faster than the last one. However, it could no longer kill him. The snail splashed Slimy again with acid, greatly damaging him. Looking at his body, the snail wondered if it had won, moving closer to his prey. But suddenly a tentacle appeared before him, shoving a poison mushroom into its mouth. Slimy had let it hit him on purpose. After all, once you knew its weakness, taking it down was a piece of cake. That was the difference in their intelligence. The snail had been poisoned, dying quickly as it was decomposed and absorbed. No matter what, Slimy still could not bear the experience of decomposing snails. But he needed to keep moving forward. Noticing a distant shadow, he assumed that it was another snail, telling it to come out. But Slimy was shocked to see that it was actually a knife-footed centipede. The centipede loomed over Slimy with its giant body, and seeing its pointy feet move around, he was terrified. The centipede then lunged at Slimy as he took out more poison mushrooms, trying to scare it away. But to his horror, the centipede cut through his mushrooms with its sharp pincers. As it dawned on Slimy that this trick did not work on it, the centipede caught Slimy with its skill myriapod blade strangle, biting into his body. But to its shock, he began getting absorbed into the slime mold's body. Slimy wondered how this must be a kind of compatibility, as the slime mold's body was immune to attacks from a sharp blade. This was a pleasant surprise, as he could now get experience points delivered right to his doorstep, decomposing the centipede within his body as it struggled. He then began hunting other bugs, even going as far as to try eating a hornet, but unfortunately, he could not reach it. Meanwhile, looking at a cockroach, he just gave up. Happily making his way through the forest, he enjoyed eating everything. Having found a new place in the food chain, he was now leveling up even faster. Thinking about how the slime mold was actually a good body, he happily continued eating. Slimy had now leveled up in the food chain, thinking that it was time to change the menu, as he wanted to try the giant frog's leg. If he were able to get through the toughest early stages, then the process of going to the top would be like a snowball rolling downhill. His body's growth would be unstoppable, and his domination of this world was just around the corner, laughing as he sat on the mountain of monster bodies. Just then, he was surprised to find that there was another pond in the area. Reaching over to it, he thought about how the swamp was filled with ponds, wondering if there were more resources in the water and if he should go and explore it. Deciding to give it a try, he slowly lowered his body into the pond. But suddenly his body started swelling up, feeling like it was about to explode. He realized that this was due to the osmosis effect, making his body swell as it absorbed the water. He was a single-celled organism now, so naturally, he needed to be careful of it. Pulling his body back, it seemed that he would need to put his plan to explore the waters on hold for now. But then, to his surprise, a monster rose from the pond, making Slimy question if it was some kind of crab from its appearance. Taking a good look at the crab, he was reminded of the crab dishes he had loved in his old world. Springy crab claws and delicious crab meat, it was how normal food should be. After eating so many bugs, he could finally treat himself properly. With that, he decided to call the crab over to him, telling it that he wanted to be friends. But the crab just climbed over a nearby rock, spewing out more bubbles as it looked at Slimy suspiciously. Slimy realized that the crab would not fall for his trick, deciding that he was not going to waste his time on it, as it was not worth risking his life to wade through water for a bite to eat. He could always just get the crab in another way, like breaking down the poisonous mushrooms into a juice and pouring it into the water. But, to his surprise, the crab used its skill bubble barrage to attack Slimy with a jet of water, shooting it through him. Slimy was confused to see it use a water gun, looking at the hole in its body. The crab then started shooting again as Slimy rushed to get away from it, hiding behind a tree to save himself. The crab's water gun attack could actually hurt him, thinking how it was a level above the bugs he had encountered before. Going out now would immediately make him its target, so he needed to wait and see who had more patience among them. Seeing the crab jump back into the water, he wondered if it had given up. But the crab crawled out on the ground, making its way towards Slimy with its claws raised. The crab dashed around with incredible speed, shocking Slimy. As he quickly climbed a tree, he realized that it really intended to eat him up. He had gone from hunter to prey in an instant. Once he was up the tree, he would keep his distance and use the tree trunk to circle around it so that he wouldn't need to worry about its water gun. Just then, he noticed a spider on the tree, telling it to get out of his way as he was busy right now. Seeing the spider not move, he advised it not to be ungrateful, threatening that he had eaten plenty of bugs like it. But the spider did not listen, standing before Slimy as it attacked him with its arachnid slash, chopping off his body. Slimy was stunned, thinking how he was supposed to be immune to slash attacks. But the spider was a higher level than him, as it began eating his body. Slimy was then surprised by another water gun attack, as he saw that the crab had caught up to him. This was truly his bad luck, as he had been surrounded by the monsters, thinking about how he had been driven into a dead end again. Just as the crab used its water gun attack again, Slimy moved his body out of its way as the attack hit the spider, cutting off one of its legs. The spider was shocked to see this, as it jumped off the tree to attack the crab that had caused this. It attacked the crab with its arachnid silk shot, grabbing it with its web before slashing its body. But the crab tanked the attack with its crustacean shell, attacking the spider with its claw as it got caught up in more webs. The crab's claw was now stuck. Slimy watched this all from the tree trunk. His plan to make the monsters attack each other had succeeded. The crab then broke through the web with its bubbles, watching as the spider attacked, aiming for its eye. But the crab managed to block the attack. Having broken the spider's leg in the process, he proceeded to smash its head with its claw. But the spider had managed to jump out of the way to avoid the attack, surprising the crab. It then quickly started running around the crab, covering it with its web from all sides. The spider finally stood atop the crab, having trapped it. Slimy was shocked to see that the spider had managed to turn the tables. But as the spider finally approached to finish off its prey, the crab suddenly started shooting its water gun, cutting through a tree in the process as it wildly jumped around using the force of its attack. The spider had been cut into pieces, having been caught in the attack. But the crab continued to shoot its water gun, as Slimy tried his best to avoid it, realizing that the crab's survival instinct had been triggered. The crab then finally ran out of water, lying down with its eyes dried up. Peeking from behind a tree, Slimy wondered if it was finally over. He then slowly crawled over to the dead monsters, saying how he had warned the crab not to shoot everywhere, calling out how weak he was now. But now Slimy wondered how he should end this. Covering the crab's mouth would be like handing himself over to be eaten, and if he used a poison mushroom, it would just close its mouth, and he could not pry it open. If he did not deal with it quickly, it would be even harder once the crab recovered. Looking around, he then noticed a rock lying nearby. First, he needed to store the rock in his slime mold inventory. But the system notified him that he did not have enough space, realizing that the size of his inventory was decided by the size of his body, and he had just lost a huge chunk of it. Throwing away all the mushrooms that he had stored in his body, he was finally able to store the stone. But suddenly his body became heavier. Still, he needed to make his way to the top of the tree. Reaching the top, he called out to the crab, saying that he was here to collect his debt. The crab looks up to find Slimy jumping down at him with the rock. In a panic, the crab tried to stop him with its water gun, but it was too weak to do anything. He looked in horror as the rock slammed down on him. Slimy had finally won this three-way battle, having leveled up after defeating the crab. Happy that it was now time to eat. Making his way back to his dead tree log, he had prepared the crab to eat it, dipping it in a sauce he had made as he took a bite. The flavor burst in his mouth, filling him with joy. Before, he had to eat things like moldy biscuit-like wood and snails that tasted like snot. Finally, for the first time since his reincarnation, he had tasted delicious food. The food had truly healed his wounded heart, and he decided that he must survive in this strange world because there were bound to be many more delicious foods he could eat. Thinking about how he should change the direction to a food-themed manga, he then dove in, thanking nature for this food, as he decomposed the entire crab. His belly was now full, as he sat happily. Now that he was energized, he could continue his adventure as he made his way through the swamp forest once again. But suddenly his stomach started hurting. He was unable to bear the pain as his body started swelling up, questioning what was happening as he tried to push out whatever was hurting him. Just then, he remembered the crab's water gun attack, realizing that his body had also absorbed the water gun attack for itself. But the water was hurting inside his body as he tried pushing it out with force, with a small part of his body weakly shooting out from behind. This was not how he had wanted the skill to work, so he tried using it again. But no matter what, only weak spurts came out. Even after holding it in until his body was stressed, he couldn't control the direction in which it came out. Moreover, what did come out had absolutely no power whatsoever. Thinking about how outrageous this was, he puffed his body again, throwing out a shot once more, but this time with his burst skill activated. The slime shot through like a bullet, creating a hole in the crab's shell. He had finally attained a new skill called ectoplasm ejection, being happy at how he could evolve his skills. He then remembered how the burst skill had a 5-minute cooldown before, wondering if it was gone. He tested it out by shooting multiple shots at the shell, realizing that his skills did not need to cool down anymore. His ectoplasm ejection also leveled up from the repeated use. He had gained an amazing skill, but the price was that every shot cost him his HP as he stood there dried out. He had roughly figured out the rules of his skills, understanding that, as a slime mold, he had no magic, so the ectoplasm in his body was the source of his attacks. All of his skills could only be developed around the properties of the slime mold itself, which meant that he would be out of luck when it came to magic and similar techniques. It was a little disappointing, but the only way forward now was to break down and absorb more nutrients to grow properly as he ate the spider too, not liking its taste. Just then, a thought hit him, for if slime molds grew by eating solid food, what would happen if they ate their own bodies? Moving over to where the battle had taken place, he found a piece of his body that had been cut off when he was fighting the spider. Slimy then tried to reabsorb the part of his body, but suddenly, a sensation shot up his body as his mind was filled with new memories that he did not have before. Slimy finally understood what had happened. Although a severed body had no independent consciousness, it could still decompose things on its own. And when he reabsorbed it, he was able to gain experience points and HP that the part had collected. Thinking that he had found a bug in the system, if he divided his body into several parts to work and then brought them back together after a certain period of time, he could essentially turn his one mouth into many. If that were the case, his upgrade efficiency would greatly increase. He then divided a small part of his body to test this out. But seeing it instantly shrivel up, he understood that the clones would enter a state of self-decomposition if their health fell below 30 points. With his maximum health, which was just around 200, he could split up into only so many parts, but then he remembered that as long as he had enough food, he could create as many clones as he wanted. With that, he spat out a bigger chunk of himself, successfully creating a clone. With the clone, he would decompose the spider meat and restore it to his optimal state. After all, safety was his priority when hunting. After becoming more familiar with his slime mold body, he was now feeling incredibly strong. He had basic stabbing and slashing immunity, and was now basically immune to advanced slashes as well. It was fair to say that even the most powerful physical attacks were unlikely to pose a fatal threat to him. But the only worry now was magical attacks. But he had not encountered magic yet, wondering if his circle was too small or if this world was just a different version of the animal kingdom. Diving through the pond, he had finally tried making his way through water. But Slimy was suddenly caught by a crab as it began eating him. Looking away, many such crabs had caught small pieces of Slimy, leaving behind a trail of both his body and crabs that were eating it. However, the original Slimy had managed to sneak past them, decomposing a tree where the crabs were eating. Suddenly, the crabs heard a weird noise, looking back only to see that Slimy had caused a tree to fall, aiming it towards them as the trunk came crashing down, smashing the crabs. He had managed to defeat 6 crabs at once, gaining all of their experience points and leveling up. Having eaten all of them, he spat out their shells. Placing one of the shells on a nearby rock, he used it for target practice, firing a barrage of slime bullets at it. The shell was filled with holes as his ectoplasm ejection skill leveled up once again. After 2 days of quiet practice, the power and accuracy of his moves had improved. His maximum burst now was 30 shots, thinking about what he could do to become even stronger. Just then, an idea hit him as he decided to add some spice to his moves, picking up some poison mushrooms, If he launched a shot along with a poisonous mushroom, he could remotely poison the target. Similarly, launching a shot with a stone increased physical damage, breaking apart a chunk of the shell at once. Thinking about how he was a genius for having come up with this. A sound then caught his attention as he turned around to see that it was coming from a tree hole, noticing glowing particles coming from it. Climbing up the tree, he was excited to see what it was, only to be shocked to see what looked like a ghost owl. He immediately started running away, realizing that he had finally found a magic monster, thinking how he needed to leave quickly. But the owl had already spotted him, as it activated a skill called symbiotic scrying. From far away, a pink-haired girl looked on curiously with her hand around her eye. Her teammates asked if she had found anything, as she said that it was nothing but a strange monster. The adventurers were making their way through the forest, thinking how it was strange that they had not encountered a single high-level monster on the way. The girl told her pet to smell carefully and lead them out of there, as their magic communications had been cut, so they couldn't reach out to the guildmaster. Meanwhile, Slimy was running away from the owl, thinking about how it had spotted him. He absolutely could not fight it, so the only option was to flee, wondering where it would be safe to go. Looking at the pond, he thought that if he could cross to the other side, he could hide there and be safe. But the real problem was how he was going to cross it. Using his burst skill, he jumped over the pond with full force, and as he was halfway across, he used his slime barrage to shoot off and gain more momentum, landing on the other side. He then continued running, hiding deeper within the forest as he finally reached a tree, thinking if it was safe now. He had been scared to death, gathering some twigs as he needed to eat and replenish his strength first. He was now able to face monsters of the same rank with his slime body, but facing a monster of a higher rank would likely lead to him being easily defeated. Just then, he felt something coming up behind him as shivers ran down his non-existent spine. He wondered if he was still being chased, as this oppressive feeling was even worse than when he had faced the snake crane. Questioning just what the origin of that owl is. Looking out into the distance, he realized that it was not the owl. A giant finger with golden energy coming out of it came crashing in near him, with Slimy looking over at the severed claw. He had been blessed with this golden finger, with his intuition telling him that if he could break down and absorb this high-level magical beast's finger, then not only would he instantly level up several times, but might even evolve because of it. With that, he began climbing the giant claw, activating his decompose skill as he covered the claw with his slime. However, his body started reacting to the finger, swelling up painfully as he tried to absorb it. The system informed him that the decomposition had failed, as his skill was too low compared to the target he was trying to dissolve, and now his cells were being attacked. Slimy began to take damage just by standing on it. He immediately cut off the infected part and removed himself, landing on a nearby log. His decompose skill was too low-leveled, regretting that he had not used his points on it as he ate the dead tree to recover. Having a top-tier material in front of him while being unable to break it down made him feel irritated. The target was also way too big, so he could not store it in his slime mold body and take it with him even if he wanted to. The only way left for him was to continue upgrading and max out his decompose skill, and then come back and try again. But then suddenly he felt the ground rumble, wondering if it was an earthquake. The ground beneath the finger started sinking, and a hole appeared below it, with the claw and logs falling into the hole. As Slimy was about to fall, he cut off his body once again, shooting off to a nearby tree to save himself. But that tree was also being dragged into the ground, making sure that he couldn't get away. And as the earth filled the hole, it began closing itself. Slimy had barely managed to avoid it by crawling off into the opposite direction. He had been scared to death by this outside world, almost crying. The further he went, the more insignificant he felt. He could no longer be arrogant, with hiding away and developing his skills being his only way out. However, deep inside the underground, beneath mole nests and buried treasures, the golden finger lay in a hole. Suddenly, giant teeth appeared all around it, as a monster ate the finger in a single bite. Slimy had now come far away from the owl and the finger, making his way deep into the forest. Finally reaching a good spot, he decided to make it his temporary base, thinking that he would go and reabsorb his clone tomorrow. Climbing on a tree, he started breaking it down with decomposition, making a hole in it as he entered the tree to make the inside bigger while keeping the entrance small so that larger monsters could not get in. With that, he began the construction, carving away at the tree using his decompose skill. After he was done, he planted some glowing mushrooms inside before resting on a bed he had made from moss. Now his temporary base was complete, stashed with mushrooms, meat, and wood for snacks. He had cleverly made it so that the entrance would only lead to a fake space below his actual base, which only he could enter through a narrow link channel. Picking up a crab leg, he began eating it with a newfound sense of security. But then, suddenly, a buzzing noise filled the area, irritating him. He peeked out to see what the racket was all about, only to find a swarm of hornets passing through, making it sound like a fighter jet. Looking at them, he had an idea, as he shot at them with a rock-filled slime bullet, tearing a hornet's body apart. With this, he had found a new way to gain experience, teasing the hornets. The hornets then swarmed his hole, ready to attack with their stingers. But Slimy quickly went in, as the hornets followed after him, getting inside the hole. But Slimy's plan had been successful as he trapped all the hornets inside his body, killing them. He then noticed that some of the hornets were running away, so he decided to follow them, finding the hornet's nest. Their lair had now been discovered. A few hornets then appeared before Slimy, confusing him, as suddenly he was being chased by the entire hive coming to attack him. But Slimy stood his ground, saying the hornets' attacks were useless against him as he got ready for the fight. But the hive had completely covered him, suffocating him beneath their bodies. And because they were all stacked on top of each other, this caused the heat to rise in the center as the system informed Slimy that his cells were dying from the extreme heat, making him panic as he started losing HP. Using his slime barrage, he shot apart from their trap, sending the dead hornets flying. But a bigger hornet suddenly appeared, using its beeswax shield to stop the slime bullet, throwing it back at Slimy. Slimy realized that the forces near the lair were far stronger than those he had faced outside. Another stronger hornet then appeared as they plucked out their own stinger. Using the stinger as a wand, they activated their skill, Swarm Summon, to call on even more warrior hornets. As they all surrounded Slimy to attack him, Slimy was shocked to see a hornet mage, questioning if it was an evolved form that could use magic. The hornet mage looked at him, ordering the warriors to attack, as the group charged at Slimy. But he was ready, preparing his slime barrage as he shot out multiple bullets, taking down the hornets. The swarm was too large, and each shot consumed his ectoplasm. But fortunately, he had placed a clone inside the tree, which was decomposing the wood and feeding him with nutrients, replenishing his health. The hornets then started using the beeswax shield to stop Slimy's bullets, irritating him. He could use stones to enhance his bullets, but he only had one stone left in his inventory. As he was focused on the shield hornet, two more warriors came from behind to attack him, trying to stab Slimy with their stingers. But it was unsuccessful, as he absorbed them with his body, thanking them for delivering themselves. Consuming the warrior hornets, he was able to break them down, gaining their stingers. And with that, he enhanced a slime bullet, shooting it right through the shield and the hornet behind it. The hornet mage was stunned to see this, telling the warriors to fall back and stop attacking Slimy, but he stood proud, asking if the hornets were retreating now, being scared of him. However, the mage had different plans. As he began moving his wand again, the wasp mage started casting a spell as honey started gathering on its wand. Seeing the honey, Slimy really wanted to taste it. But the honey was suddenly set on fire with the spark ember spell as the wasp mage fired it at Slimy. Slimy was hit with the fireball, taking a huge chunk of damage. The wasp mage kept firing more honey fireballs, sending him into a panic as fire magic completely countered his slimy body. Plus, the splash effect of the honey made it stick to him. He could not beat them like this, so he had to run. Slimy began to flee, dodging the fireballs, while he kept firing plasma barrage bullets at the wasps. But the bullets were blocked by the wasps with their twin beeswax barrier. Slimy was surprised to see that the barrier could be buffed up, calling it unfair as the attacks continued. The wasp mage then used the swarm summon spell again, but this time it summoned self-destruct bees. The bees immediately headed towards the tree where Slimy was, exploding on contact as they sent Slimy's body flying away. The body then landed on another tree branch, which was immediately noticed by the wasp mage, who sent some warrior wasps to break it, making the slime fall below into a giant swarm of wasps. Charging another giant honey fireball, the wasp mage threw it at the slime, along with all of the self-destruct bees, surrounding him in an attack that he could not escape. And as the fireball made contact, the entire area exploded with a giant bang, shaking the forest. The wasps stood there and looked at the aftermath, as they saw pieces of burnt tree bark and slime scattered everywhere, content that it had defeated the enemy. The wasp mage then sent all of the soldiers back to their spots, now that the threat was gone. But then it noticed something, as it saw Slimy rushing towards the nest for a sneak attack. The wasps from the nest started attacking him, but they could not do anything to his slimy body. It was too late, as the main forces were all outside, and just a few of them could not stop him. From the very start, besides burrowing his body into the tree trunk to decompose and replenish, he was also constantly extending, secretly creating a passage for their nest. When he was forced behind the trunk by the wasps, he used most of his HP to create a split body to draw away their attention, and sure enough, they immediately focused on the spilt body. And he took that opportunity to move through the passage to their nest here. As Slimy finally reached the nest, he immediately stretched his tendrils, activating his search ability. Looking through the structure of the wasp's nest, he went around in every room, searching for the place where honey was stored. But there was something else he needed to find as well, deciding to come back for the honey later. He then finally found the queen bee's lair, seeing her eating some meat. The other bees immediately headed towards the queen, and seeing Slimy, they all got enraged. Slimy told them not to move, as their queen was in his hands right now, threatening them with a rock. The queen screamed in pain as Slimy coiled around her. The mage immediately sent the warriors to attack Slimy. But as they were headed towards him, he was disappointed that there was no room for negotiation, tearing apart the queen's head as he crushed her body. The mage wasp was devastated to see this, as the entire hive started falling. Slimy was surprised to see that the queen bee was equivalent to a host machine. As long as he killed her, the entire swarm would naturally collapse and disintegrate. Originally, he had thought about negotiating with them, but it seems that even with a social structure, low-level monsters still only follow their instincts. The system informed Slimy that he had reached level-up requirements. It also notified that decomposing bee parts within 24 hours will no longer grant him experience points, and that his HP exceeding his maximum points will be cleared after 1 hour. He had now leveled up to level 21. This decomposition had not only boosted his poison resistance significantly, but he had also unexpectedly gained a new skill called Central Command. However, when he tried adding a skill point to it, nothing happened as it informed him that he did not have enough subordinates to command. He had originally wanted to max out his decomposition skill to prepare for scavenging bodies, but he had not expected that racial skills could not be upgraded with points, so he had to max out pulsation first instead. Fortunately, the haul this time was plentiful. As his HP increased, the slime mold space inside his body expanded as well, and the honey he had collected was a treasure. But looking back at the destroyed hive, he wondered why he had such mixed feelings even though he no longer had a heart. Starting with turning the tables on the snail, he officially began his path of predation. But something didn't feel right. He then began imagining how the crab's child must be waiting for him, wondering why he had not come back yet to play with him as he had promised. The crab had told his wife that he would be late as he was going to take care of some clients, asking her to explain this to the baby crab since he couldn't play with him. His mom told him that his dad was working hard for them, asking him to be patient. But then a long time passed, as even mommy crab started getting concerned. It had been so late, and her husband had not given them even a phone call, wondering if he had passed out drunk somewhere. He then told baby crab that they would need to go out and look for him. On the road, the baby crab was singing his favorite anime song, but his mother told him to keep it down as he would disturb the neighbors. They then noticed a man walking towards them shabbily, as the baby crab immediately recognized him as his father. He started calling out to his dad, asking why he was walking in the wrong direction. His mother said that he was definitely drunk, telling her son to go help out his dad. The son happily agreed as he ran off to his father. But what he saw when the crab suddenly turned back was that he had been turned into a zombie by a slime monster that had taken over his body, eating him from the inside. A scream could be heard throughout the forest as the slime thought that he had become the villain. But then he snapped back to reality, realizing that he was overthinking it, probably because his mental foundation was still human, so he felt guilty. But now that he was a slime mold in this isekai, he had no control. If he were not the hunter, he would become the prey. The weak were meat for the strong. Survival of the fittest, that was the law of nature. To survive in this isekai, hunting and decomposition were his only real choices. Material foundation determined the superstructure, so he decided to solve the survival problem first. For that, he will have to go reclaim the split body that he had released this morning, wondering what surprises there would be this time. He rushed off to his destination, but as he was about to reach there, he was confused to see a campfire. Slowing down, he crept up to see if it could be humans, hiding behind some bushes to take a look. The hunter's party was lying around the campfire as the man asked Nia if she wasn't afraid of poking herself by leaning against that pig. Slimy was surprised to see that it really was humans. Nia replied, saying that in a relaxed state, the steelback's bristles were very soft, thanking it for its hard work today, as they would be counting on it again tomorrow. Carter said that they had originally thought to search for the guildmaster's whereabouts, but unexpectedly ended up getting lost themselves. So as a captain, he could not help but blame himself, apologizing to his teammates. Cole said that the magic communication was cut off, yet there was no sign of high-level magical beasts, and even the forest seemed to have turned into a maze. No one could have predicted that so many strange phenomena would occur at once, telling Carter not to blame himself. Although they hadn't found the guildmaster yet, there was no need to worry too much. After all, the guildmaster was ranked in the top 3 in strength among the leaders of the 8 great guilds, so once they find the way back tomorrow, they will just have to report this situation to the church. Carter said that the guildmaster's strength was unquestionable, but he had been out of contact for 2 whole years. There were rumors on the streets that their guildmaster had incurred the suspicion of the church. Coincidentally, their guildmaster only came here after accepting a mission personally assigned by the Pope. 10 years ago, Guildmaster Gon founded the 100-Style Guild. Unlike the strict entry requirements of the other guilds, the 100-Style Guild distinguishes no race, profession, or level. One only needs to agree with the guild's spirit of no deception, no abuse, no evil to join. The resources Guild Master Gon obtained from every monster subjugation were distributed fairly to all members, helping everyone grow. Because of this, the 100-Style Guild became famous for generosity and unity, rapidly rising to become one of the 8 great guilds. Also, because the 100-Style Guild grew faster and faster, it was rumored to have incurred the suspicion of the church. 2 years ago, Guildmaster Gon told them he was going to the swamp forest for a mission, and there had been no news since. Losing the Guildmaster's protection, over these 2 years, members have been poached or scattered. The once glorious 100-Style Guild had become precarious. The Guildmaster recognized Carter's talent, which is why he formed this squad to come find news of Guildmaster Gon. But in the end, only Nia and Cole had responded to him, so he was thankful to them. Nia told him not to worry, saying that if Gon hadn't founded the guild, someone with a niche profession like hers could not have become an adventurer after all. But Cole said that for someone like her, who could control intermediate magical beasts, tons of guilds would be fighting over her, so if something happened to Gon, she did not need to worry about her next home. Nia told him to shut his mouth and go to sleep, with Cole asking her to pretend like he hadn't said anything. Meanwhile, Slimy was trying to eavesdrop on them, but he wasn't able to hear anything clearly. Gathering intelligence on the worldview from the side of humans was very important, so he tried extending his body to act like a receiver, sending over a piece of himself towards the hunters. However, Cole immediately noticed that there was a monster there, stabbing Slimy's extended body with an ice spike. The system informed him that the frost effect was super effective, and his speed had been reduced by 90%, making Slimy panic. Cole told the party members not to worry, as he had handled it, but they were already on alert, searching for the monster. They then found the slime that had been impaled on the ice spike. The steelback started sniffing it, biting off the slime from the ice. Slimy panicked as the boar started slurping his body like a noodle, sucking him towards its mouth where it could eat him, making it an instant game over. But Nia told him not to eat it, saying that they must not kill indiscriminately. The slime was just a passing small monster, so it was no threat, asking the steelback to let go of it. The steelbackle spat out Slimy, who landed in Nia's hand. She felt like she had seen it before, as there was a familiar feeling, asking Slimy if it wanted to form a monster contract with her. Slimy felt like he had met a real angel, finally getting to experience the bonds of isekai, as he happily agreed, but Carter told her to stop messing around, as they still had to find the way out tomorrow. So now was not the time to collect monsters, telling her not to waste mana on a low-level monster like a slime, which offended Slimy. Nia then let him go, as Slimy realized that they did not seem to hear him speak. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind as he started extending his body. The hunters were surprised to see this, as Slimy formed the word hello with his body, thinking that they must be surprised to see an intelligent life form like him. But they thought that he was excreting waste, making Slimy realize that the people in the isekai did not speak Chinese. So he gave up on trying to communicate, as he would probably be treated as some weird monster and killed, thinking that it was better to leave. At least now he knew that there were humans in this world, just that there was also a language barrier. Slimy then crossed over the river to return to his original grounds. Now that he was back here again, he hoped that he would not run into the terrifying ghost owl. He then activated his nucleus command skill, searching for his split bodies. Locating them through the forest, he finally found them. He was amazed at how he was able to locate pieces of himself with this new skill, as he rushed off to retrieve them with no time to lose. With the signal getting stronger, he realized that it should be right ahead. But as he approached the split body, he was amazed. Seeing how huge it had grown, he wondered how many things it must have decomposed. Using his reclamation skill, he began absorbing it again, gaining massive amounts of experience points from it and making his HP reach the maximum value. Slimy then rushed off to all the other split bodies, absorbing them all one by one. He then finally started searching for the last split body, but the signal was getting weaker, making him wonder where his EXP pack was. He finally found it, seeing it behind a group of mushrooms, but he then noticed that a snail was eating his split body. Slimy immediately shot a plasma bullet at the snail, irritated to see it eating his body. The split body was saved, shaking in fear as Slimy tried to comfort it, saying that he was here to pick it up. But as he started moving towards the split body, a giant tongue suddenly appeared out of nowhere, smashing into the mushrooms as it stole Slimy's body away. The giant frog ate Slimy's split body, making him shake in anger. He had eaten his baby, so now the frog was going to pay for it in blood. Slimy shot a stone plasma bullet at it, shocking the frog as it hit him right in the face. Slimy told the frog to choke on it, thinking that he had won. But then he was shocked as he saw that the frog had caught it with its tongue. The frog then ran away into the lake as Slimy chased after it, determined not to let it go. Seeing it raise its head above the water, he immediately fired bullets at it, but the frog dove underwater, avoiding all the attacks to Slimy's frustration. But then the frog jumped out of the water again. Slimy thought that it must be because frogs were amphibians, so they needed to come up for air, telling it that it was dead this time. But to his surprise, the frog stood on water, jumping at him with its fangs out as the frog used the skill power release. But before he could eat him, Slimy jumped out of the way, shooting another bullet at it as it hit the frog's eye. He then extended his tendrils, grabbing hold of a tree as he pulled himself towards it like he was Spider-Man. Slimy realized that the frog was not trying to run away, but was rather luring him to the pond where it had the advantage to hunt him. He had become a bit too prideful after the hive fight, but in a random wild encounter, it was never certain who could become the prey, so he needed to be careful. The frog held on to his bloody eye, staring at Slimy as it once again leapt at him. However, Slimy had already used all of his stones, so he fired at the frog with normal plasma bullets. But to his surprise, the frog ate all the bullets, shocking him as it landed on the tree. It then shot out its tongue, grabbing hold of Slimy, pulling him towards it. Slimy tried to fight by grabbing onto the tree branch, but because of the pressure, the branch broke. He was about to be eaten, but before the frog could take him, Slimy grabbed the branch, using it as a spear as he stabbed the frog in the mouth, making it fall down in the lake. Slimy was nervous by how close that was, seeing the frog's body drown in the water. It was sad that he had lost the frog's corpse and could not decompose it. But before he could even move away, a pair of eyes appeared in the lake, jumping at Slimy with incredible force, as it tore through his body, as well as the tree he was on, hitting another tree behind them, breaking it in half as it sent the trunk flying away, crashing into the ground. The frog had transformed into a white form, with crystal-like eyes stood on the broken tree trunk, having used its skill Scantified Fall to attack as it chewed on Slimy's body. The slime mold couldn't believe his eyes, as his dead enemy suddenly sprang back to life. Crawling out from a crushed tree, the sanctified frog glared at him with glowing red eyes, clearly ready for blood. Suddenly, the lumps on the frog's eyes burst open, firing jets of high-pressure blood at Slimy like deadly lasers. The slime mold just barely jumped out of the way. Seeing the caustic blood melt the wood where he had been standing, Slimy knew he was in over his head. He shot a sticky line of slime into the high branches and began swinging away through the trees. He had to put some distance between himself and this freak of nature. He knew when to run, but he was baffled why did this weak monster have a third form when everything else he'd fought was so easy to eat. Something felt wrong, but for now his only plan was to keep moving. The frog wasn't about to let its dinner walk away. It let out a roar and started chasing him with terrifying speed. Using its long, sticky tongue, the predator swung through the canopy, matching Slimy's every move. After a short chase, the frog paused to wipe blood from its mouth, its body starting to glow with a creepy light as it prepared a new move. It whipped a cord of solid blood through the air, the sanguine lash which sliced right through Slimy's tendril and hit him for 199 damage. As the slime mold tumbled, a system alert popped up. A foreign toxin had entered his body. He started to panic, realizing his high poison resistance was no match for this frog's blood. The frog dove down, shooting its tongue out like a harpoon to grab him. As he was dragged down, Slimy tried to act tough, mocking the tiny bit of damage he took. He figured his liquid body could handle anything physical, but that confidence vanished the moment he splashed into the river. He had been pulled into his worst nightmare, fresh water. A red alert flashed in his mind, warning him that his internal pressure was at a deadly level. Before he could even try to crawl out, the frog's massive mouth snapped shut, swallowing him whole. Everything went quiet as the frog floated on the water, looking proud of itself. But inside, things were getting messy. Slimy was still alive, fighting hard to avoid being pushed down the frog's throat. The frog just squeezed tighter, forcing him down into the darkness. Trapped in a pool of stomach acid, the slime mold watched his health drop by 33 points every second. In the pitch-black belly, panic took over. He tried to eject his core, but he was too tired, and his split skill wouldn't work. Outside, the frog croaked happily and splashed in the water, but inside, Slimy saw one last chance. Instead of fighting the water that was killing him, he leaned into it. He triggered his own weakness on purpose. By drinking in massive amounts of water, his body began to swell like a balloon inside the frog's throat. The frog started clawing at its own neck, realizing too late that its throat was bulging out in a grotesque way. Slimy kept growing, filling the frog's mouth and throat until the monster was about to burst. The frog's happy croaks turned into desperate gasps as the sheer mass of the slime forced its mouth open. To survive the damage caused by his own growth, the slime mold chugged his entire stash of hornet honey, healing 400 HP at a time to stay ahead of the clock. As his health kept refilling, Slimy grew to the size of a mountain, stretching the frog to the breaking point. The pressure finally became too much, and with a loud bang, the frog exploded. Pieces of bone and meat rained down on the river as the slime mold's expansion wiped his enemy off the map. Now a massive mountain of green jelly, Slimy floated down the river. The system chimed in to say the trash was gone and handed over a bunch of XP. Surviving the venom even gave him a new antibody. After the explosion, the slime mold drifted through the flooded swamp, looking like a giant pile of sludge. He was amazed at how big he was. A status window showed a new passive skill, Osmotic Pressure Regulation Max. His HP had jumped to 11,700, a huge increase from his old 924 cap, though a timer showed this power would only last for an hour. He looked at his new shape, realizing he could float like an iceberg now. His bottom half was in the water, but his huge size let him handle the pressure without dying. It was a lucky break from a very risky move. But that timer started to worry him. Slimy didn't want to lose those 10,000 extra hit points that made him basically invincible. His mood turned from relief to greed. He'd spent all his honey to get this big, and he wasn't going to let it go to waste. He laughed, imagining himself as a giant monster destroying the forest. Inspired by a game about a rolling sticky ball, he decided to roll through the woods and grab everything he could find. In his giant state, the slime mold rumbled through the wetlands like a natural disaster. Every plant he crushed gave him points and experience. Slimy plowed through the trees, harvesting everything before his time ran out. Under the water, fish were swimming peacefully until the slime mold crashed into the depths. The underwater hunt didn't go well. Even though he was safe from the water pressure, he was too slow, and the fish were too fast to be worth the trouble. He gave up on the river and dragged himself onto dry land. Slimy pulled his massive weight onto the bank, flattening a patch of mushrooms near a tree. He flowed over them, eating them instantly and leaving a bear trail behind. Moving further inland, he found two little otter-like creatures with a fresh fish on the grass. The slime mold's huge shadow fell over them as he shouted a greeting that sounded like a roar. He lunged before they could run, pinning them under his sticky weight. He didn't eat them though, he just rolled away, telling them he was taking their fish as a tax. The two otters were left sitting in the mud, covered in green slime, and looking at their stolen dinner in shock. As he rolled off, Slimy told himself that letting them live was proof he still had a kind heart. That thought ended when he saw a squirrel with fire on its tail guarding a nut. The squirrel didn't back down. Instead, its fur started to glow with heat. With a quick handstand, the squirrel fired a blast of flames right at the slime mold. It actually hurt. Slimy felt the sting as damage markers popped up, reminding him that fire was still dangerous even at his size. But the size difference was just too much. The slime mold loomed over the little rodent, telling it not to blame him for what was about to happen. He crushed the squirrel under his green weight, making a joke about fire safety. When he moved on, only a white skeleton was left. The system pinged again with more experience points. Deeper in the woods, he heard the sounds of a serious fight. A tough lizard was being tossed around by a tree monster with a crystal heart. The lizard fought back, spitting a stream of strong acid from its throat. The acid splashed over the tree, melting the bark in a sizzling mess, but the tree had a trick. As it died, it shot a glowing seed into a nearby stump. Using the energy from the ground, the stump grew back into a full tree monster instantly. Growling, the lizard used a wild rush to get close, dodging the tree's branch spears with ease. The lizard went for a bite, but the tree was ready. A sharp branch caught the lizard's arm and poked through its skin. Small white buds grew over the wood, and a creepy flower bloomed right in front of the lizard's nose. The lizard's eye caught a glimpse of the petals before a parasitic infection took over. Red lumps burst out of the lizard's eye, and it shattered in a mess of blood. The tree monster took advantage of the lizard's scream, hitting it with a heavy branch and sending it flying into the rocks. Even though it was blind and in pain, the lizard wouldn't quit. It switched to thermal vision, tracking the heat of the tree to dodge its attacks. The lizard jumped into the air and started spinning like a saw blade, using a move called Sharp Tail. The downward force sliced right through the tree monster, breaking its crystal heart. The monster turned into a pile of wood chips. The lizard let out a roar of victory, but it was in bad shape. It whined as the flower in its eye started growing into its brain. The blind, sick animal was shaking when a huge shadow covered it. Slimy rolled down the hill and crushed the lizard, absorbing it into his body. The system warned him about another infection, but his antibodies took care of it and gave him more experience. Slimy ignored the warning and focused on eating. But as he looked back at the land he had flattened, he realized the forest still looked full of trees, almost like they were growing back as fast as he could crush them. Suddenly, the ground shook. A pillar of dark energy shot out of a mountain in the distance and poked a hole in the sky, surrounded by glowing symbols. The slime mold just stared. It was huge, but there wasn't any sound at all. Before he could think about it, his hour was up. His massive health pool disappeared, and his giant body turned into smoke. He was just a small, spiky blob on the ground again. Checking his stats, Slimy saw he was now level 49 and had the Weak Creature Lord title with his HP around 3,000. It was a good start, but a notice for nutritional overload ruined it. He couldn't get any more experience for an hour. Standing in the crater he had made, he wondered if his new title just made him the king of the losers. Feeling sick from eating too much, he saw his inventory was full of rocks and wood. He threw it all up, leaving a mountain of junk on the grass. Lying there bored, a message appeared. At level 60, he could choose a class change or an evolution. The idea of real power got him excited. He figured that mimicry would lead to new jobs, while evolution would change who he was. He imagined himself as a great slime mold mage, ruling the world with his magic. The sound of wings broke his daydream. 3 shapes moved through the trees. A patrol of wasp mages. Slimy tensed up, remembering the magic users he had fought before. Since he couldn't take on 3 at once, he decided to follow them. He followed the squad through the branches, staying far enough back as they led him deep into the woods. Finally, he found their home, a massive city of hives connected by organic bridges. Slimy watched from the bushes, amazed at how organized the bugs were. The peace was ruined when a giant foot crushed a hive like an egg. A snake-tailed terror bird, a pale blue version of the beast he saw when he was first born, was attacking the colony. It didn't care about the stings, it just wanted to eat the larvae in the ruins. Slimy broke out in a sweat. A red version of this bird had once terrified him, but this blue one looked even meaner. The wasps tried to attack, but its feathers were like armor. Their stings just bounced off its skin and its scaly snake tail. They tried to cover the bird to make it overheat, but the beast just shook them off like dust. The wasp mages finally attacked, shooting fireballs from magic circles. The clearing turned into an oven as explosions hit the hives. From his hiding spot, Slimy was shocked by the power of the magic. But the blue bird didn't die. It actually drank the fire. Its feathers turned from blue to a bright red as it ate the magic. Now fully charged and glowing red, the bird let out a loud screech and looked right at the mages. The wasp suddenly looked scared. With a snap of its snake tail, the bird ripped through the hives. The snake head used heat vision to find the survivors and crushed a wasp instantly. As the swarm fell apart, Slimy realized the bird had tricked the mages into charging it up. It was smart. He decided to wait for the bird to leave so he could eat the leftovers. Suddenly, the bird's wing froze solid. A group of human adventurers had arrived, attracted by the noise. Nia Ross called it a snake heron, while Rake Carter warned it was a Lord-level threat. Slimy watched from the rocks, recognizing the team from his past. The bird's wings started to thaw as it used its own heat to melt the ice, breaking free with a simple stretch. Rake Carter told Cool Fern to get a big spell ready while he held the bird back. Cool Fern nodded, his staff glowing with energy. The heron attacked with a huge claw, which Rake blocked with his shield. He struggled under the weight, but used a shield counter to blast the bird back. The force was so strong it broke Rake's shield, leaving him wide open. The snaketail went for Rake's throat, but Naya's boar, Little Steelback, tackled it. Rake got away, but the bird was already building up power. It fired back the fire it had absorbed in a huge pseudo-dragon breath. Cool Fern acted fast, hitting the ground with his staff to make a glacial barrier. The adventurers hid behind the ice as the fire and ice crashed together, leveling the trees around them. Slimy watched in fear, realizing he was nothing compared to these guys. The ice wall started to melt. Cool Fern yelled as he used all his power, but the barrier finally broke into pieces. The smoke cleared to show scorched ground, but the humans were still alive. Slimy could only feel bad about how weak he was. Tired out, Cool Fern warned that he was out of magic. Rake Carter took charge, telling Nia to cover him while he went for the finish. Little Steelback shot quills at the bird to distract it, letting Rake use power release. The warrior jumped high into the sky and came crashing down, his mace glowing with the power of a meteor hammer. The hit was perfect, slamming the bird's head into the dirt and crushing its skull. The monster was dead. Rake Carter stood over the body and declared the fight over. Cool Fern was relieved, noting how strong the bird was. From the shadows, Slimy decided that staying near humans might be his best bet for surviving. Rake told Nia to check the bird's memories for clues about a missing boss. But as Rake stood near the tail, the red snakehead bit him on the shoulder. At the same time, the bird's main head, which everyone thought was crushed, snapped its eyes open for one last attack. Cool Fern hit the snake with an ice spike, killing it instantly, and yelled about petrifying venom. Nia tried to give Rake a potion, but it was too late. Rake's throat had already turned to stone, so he couldn't swallow. The warrior fell as his skin turned into gray rock. Nia started crying over her leader's statue. Realizing the bird was stealing Rake's life to heal itself, Cool Fern forced Nia to run. As they fled, the snake heron stood back up, its wounds closing. It watched them go and let out a sound that showed everyone who was really in charge. Drinking a stamina potion as he ran, Cole said that he had miscalculated and that the snake heron was already at the level of a high-level monster lord. But as long as they could get out within a week and ask the church to send a royal priest, Carter would be saved. The snake heron, however, caught up to them, landing in front of them as it cracked the ground. Cole was surprised to see that it had regenerated so fast, telling Nia that he would command the battle from here. The bird lunged at them with its claws ready. Nia was frozen in fear, asking Cole what they should do. He told her not to be afraid, as he had already planned it out, telling her to save her magic power for now, as they would need her to get out of this lousy place later. Cole then started casting his spell as he shot his ice, gatling at the bird, freezing its legs in place as the ice bullets rained down on it. But the snake heron broke through the attack, preparing to fire its flames again. Cole understood that it was about to cast high-tier flame magic once more, telling Nia to ignore everything else and just run. Seeing him walk towards the bird, she asked him what he was trying to do. Cole told her that he had no choice, for if he did not pin it down here, neither of them would be able to escape. He then thanked her for the magic potion before casting the high-tier magic glacial barrier as he formed a giant wall of ice between them. Nia screamed out for Cole, but the other side was engulfed in flames, leaving her devastated. Nia clenched her teeth, getting back on Little Steelback as she rode away. She needed to leave this place and bring the reports about this weird forest back to the church. Her owl, Miwu, then caught up with her, surprising Nia, who had thought she had lost him as their magic connection was cut earlier. But this was great. As with Miwu's vision, finding the way out would be easier. But she was then shocked to see that Miwu did not listen to her, flying away to stand on a branch. And as he turned, it was clear that the sanctified fall parasite had infected him, staring at Nia with its bulging eyes. This sight devastated Nia. At the same moment, in a certain sealed space, mountains of dead monster bodies were scattered around with weapons stuck in them. Guildmaster Gon sat there, looking at a system window, warning him that his energetic status and mana loan status had reached their time limit. He understood this, but then all the monster flesh before him started gathering together, merging into one body as the monster said that he had seen Gon panting from a lack of breath. In these 2 years, he had killed all the high-level magic beasts in the swamp forest to extinction, and the entity had died by his hands countless times, wondering if Gon had finally used up all his assets. The entity was the king of the swamp forest, Kedoyalawa. He asked Gon what he was muttering to himself, wondering if it was the thing he called the system. Saying how to make his guild one of the 8 great guilds, he had relied on that. Regarding the secret of his body, the entity had obtained similar intelligence in other universes through transmigration. Understanding that giving everything and sparing no effort was the best method to strangle and kill him. He had lured Gon into this trap, but simply did not expect him to have grown to this extent, still hiding so many trump cards. The entity thought that perhaps he would give him one last chance, asking Gon if he wanted to be made into a corpse puppet after he destroyed everything he had. Or would he rather join them and conspire for the grand plan of dimensional ascension? Gon said that he needed to consider it, immediately reaching his conclusion as he picked up his weapon, saying that his answer was to kill all of them as he tore them away with a single slash. Kedoyalawa laughed, saying that no matter how many times he tried, it was futile, as inside this eternal barrier he was immortal and undying, asking if Gon understood this. Another mass of flesh came up from behind Gon to attack him, saying that no matter how strong he was still mortal flesh. And his panting for breath had proven that he was nearing his limit. Saying that if he did not cooperate, he had to die. But Gon took out another item from his inventory, throwing the vial at Kedoyalawa as it broke open, spraying true holy water. The entity was shocked to see this, but the holy water kept spreading, eating away at its body. Gon explained that true holy water can scorch the soul. So even if he was to achieve physical immortality, it was meaningless before this. It was a shame as he was saving it to deal with the mastermind behind the scenes, but he had to waste it here. Kedoyalawa cursed him, saying how even the angels had fallen, questioning where he had found true holy water. But before he could get an answer, Kedoyalawa was no more. At that moment, a system message appeared before Gon, warning that a high-energy reaction had been detected and that the target was about to regenerate. Right after this alert, Kedoyalawa began regenerating at an incredible speed. Seeing this, Gon realized that although the final move he had used was Sanctified Fall, true holy water burned directly at the soul level. He understood that once the soul dissipated, even Sanctified Fall could not restore it unless a special condition was met. Kedoyalawa completed his regeneration and laughed as he faced Guildmaster Gon. He made it clear that Gon had almost killed him and mocked him for not expecting this outcome. Kedoyalawa stated that Gon's trump card was actually ineffective against him. Gon immediately recognized the phenomenon and identified it as the power of adaptation, questioning how Kedoyalawa had obtained such an ability in such a short time. Kedoyalawa explained that Gon himself was the reason. He brought up the Dragon Emperor's finger that Gon had slashed away with a single strike earlier. Kedoyalawa recalled wondering how Gon's spear arts were powerful enough to cut through even the Dragon Emperor's skin. After the finger had been severed, Kedoyalawa had lost all trace of it and could not sense its presence anywhere in the swamp forest. Kedoyalawa then revealed that the finger had likely been encountered by extremely weak monsters who did not understand the immensity of heaven and earth. This unexpected encounter triggered the Dragon Emperor's inviolability attribute, allowing Kedoyalawa to sense the corpse's location again and reclaim it through corpse reclamation. After reclaiming the corpse, Kedoyalawa finally understood the truth. He realized why Gon had deliberately slashed the Dragon Emperor's finger so far away, and why Kedoyalawa had been unable to sense its location. The real reason was that Gon had coated his weapon with true holy water, and was afraid Kedoyalawa would discover it. Kedoyalawa acknowledged that if Gon had used that amount of true holy water on him earlier, his soul would have been completely scattered. However, due to Gon's secrecy, Kedoyalawa had gained enough time to adapt to the residual true holy water on the Dragon Emperor's finger. Through this process, he had obtained the power of adaptation. Declaring that all of Gon's trump cards had been exhausted, Kedoyalawa moved in to finish him. As Kedoyalawa activated his ability, an enormous stone-like hand erupted from the ground in front of Gon and crushed him within its grasp. This attack was Kedoyalawa's abyss magic, Earth Burial. Despite this, Gon activated 20 layers of elemental rune tone effects, along with earth attribute absorption. He tore through the stone hand, forced his way out, and advanced toward Kedolyelawa while wielding his spear arts, piercing all things. Kedolyelawa responded by declaring that no matter how powerful equipment might be, there would always come a moment when its durability ran out. He questioned how long Gon intended to continue struggling. Following this, Kedolyelawa unleashed another abyss, magic technique, Necrotic Shriek. The attacks of Gon and Kedolyelawa collided head-on. At that moment, the system issued multiple warnings to Gon. It informed him that his weapon durability was about to reach its limit and required immediate repair. It also warned that his magic resistance had dropped below 20%. Another alert stated that his body had entered a fatigued state and required rest as soon as possible. Ignoring these warnings, Gon activated 1-inch punch combined with spiral force. The system immediately warned that using high-tier martial arts in his current physical condition would cause irreversible physical damage. Gon dismissed the warning, accepting the risk. Soon after, Gon's weapon shattered completely. Seizing this opportunity, Kedolyelawa used piercing all things against Gon, sending him crashing deep into the ground at tremendous speed. Gon's condition rapidly deteriorated. Blood poured from one of his arms, and he realized that his left arm had been completely ruined. Kedolyelawa mocked Gon, calling him a fool, and stating that it would have been better for him to die obediently. He accused Gon of insisting on unnecessary suffering and suggested that Gon was still foolishly believing he could turn the tables. Internally, Gon admitted his mistake. He realized that he should not have saved his skills earlier. Kedolyelawa had been right. If Gon had used all the holy water against him from the very beginning, the outcome would have been different. This was a fatal miscalculation. At that point, Kedolyelawa brought out the Dragon Emperor's finger and prepared to deliver the final blow. He bid farewell to Gon and declared that no matter what system Gon possessed, he could never win. The reason, he stated, was that Gon was not facing him alone but the entire Holy Sea. Gon stared at Kedolyelawa in silence. Then, through his system, he took out a Demon King's favor, signaling that the battle was not yet over. Kedolyelawa stood frozen in shock as the demon contract was revealed before his eyes. He pointed at Gon in disbelief, calling him a hypocrite for openly opposing their plan while secretly striking a deal with a demon long ago. As a massive shadow slowly loomed over him, his courage finally shattered. Trembling violently, he fell to his knees and begged for His Holiness, the Pope, to save him. His screams echoed through the swamp as enormous hands belonging to the Demon King emerged from the darkness. Without mercy, the Demon King activated the skill Oblivion's Grasp, crushing Kedolyelawa within its palm. His body disintegrated instantly, reduced to nothing but fine dust scattered into the air. From the darkness, a demon stepped forward and casually greeted Gon, remarking that it had been a long time. Taking a good look at Gon's exhausted state, the demon laughed mockingly, calling it truly pathetic, just like the time when the Demon King had failed to descend into this universe for the very first time. The demon chuckled, saying that this moment brought back many fond memories, and that he would never forget Gon's so-called kindness. As a reward, the demon offered to lend Gon his power, claiming it would be enough to wipe out those evil scoundrels. He directly called Gon a transmigrator, confident that this temptation would be impossible to refuse. However, to his surprise, Gon calmly tore the demon contract into pieces, declaring that they were now even. The Demon King frowned in disappointment, calling Gon a heartless man who was not falling for his schemes. Before disappearing back into the void, he offered Gon a final piece of advice, warning him that he had already seen the face of his death. Once the demon vanished, the swamp forest returned to an eerie silence. Gon summoned his system interface and saw that he had lost almost all of his HP and had no mana left. The system warned him that the *** mana loan *** skill was still deducting HP to repay the debt, and urged him to replenish immediately. Completely exhausted, Gon sat down on the ground. He wondered whether the summoning of the Hope Coordinate had been successful and asked the system to establish a dialogue connection. However, the system informed him that the connection had failed. At the same time, Slimy's yellow system message appeared, stating that decomposition had failed because the target was not organic matter. Slimy stared in disbelief at Carter's body, now completely turned to stone. Jumping off the statue, Slimy picked up Carter's mace, reasoning that since Carter no longer needed it, he might as well take the equipment. Receiving no response, Slimy accepted it as silent permission and happily hopped away with the mace. While moving through the forest, Slimy thought that if he could help the humans when they were in trouble, he might be able to hitch a ride back to the human towns with them. However, as he hurried forward, he came across a massive ice wall created earlier by Cole. Realizing that the wall was the work of a mage, Slimy assumed the group must be nearby. He wondered whether they had already defeated the snake heron and whether he could scavenge some loot. Still, prioritizing his own safety, he decided to observe first and extended his tendrils using the search skill. The moment his tendrils peeked over the ice wall, Slimy froze in horror. The snake heron was still alive, gripping Cole's burnt body tightly in its claws. Cole's skin had been completely burned away, and without hesitation, the heron opened its beak wide and swallowed him whole. Realizing that yet another hunter had fallen, Slimy immediately turned and ran. The heron, growing even stronger, watched him retreat. Slimy wondered in fear whether the remaining girl had already fallen victim as well. Elsewhere in the forest, Sanctified Fall, which had taken over the owl Miwu, launched an attack on Nia using its dive skill. Nia quickly told Little Steelback that Miwu was no longer their companion and ordered a counterattack. Steelback activated Spiny Back, extending its fur like sharp nails as Miwu charged toward them. However, the owl was prepared. Its beak began to glow as it activated Iron Beak Gale, stretching its neck and cutting everything around it. Trees were sliced apart instantly, collapsing all around as Nia and Steelback were forced backward. The attack carved through the forest, sending countless trees crashing down. Yet despite the destruction, Nia remained unharmed, sitting calmly among the fallen trees, just as Slimy rushed into the scene. Nia was crying helplessly, begging for someone to save her as fear consumed her. Everything had spiraled far beyond her expectations, and she felt completely overwhelmed by how badly things had turned out. Through her tears, she noticed that Little Steelback was buried under a pile of fallen logs. Fighting her panic, she called out to him, telling him not to be afraid and promising that she would immediately transfer mana so he could recover and stand again. Meanwhile, Sanctified Fall, still controlling Miwu's body, continued to go berserk. It flailed its head wildly, screeching as its corrupted power surged out of control. Without warning, it leapt down from the branch and rushed straight toward Nia, intent on tearing her apart. Just before it could reach her, Nia activated her mind control skill, forcing the monster's movement to halt. In the next instant, Nia found herself standing within a vast, sea-like void. Relief washed over her when she realized that the pet contract had not failed. She had successfully entered Little Miwu's spiritual world. As she looked around, she sensed another presence nearby. Turning, she saw what appeared to be a noble angel holding Miwu gently in her arms. The sight confused her deeply. She could not understand why such a pure angel would exist inside Miwu's spiritual realm. The angel called out to Nia, asking her to come closer. However, as it slowly turned around, Nia's blood ran cold. Half of its face was melted and twisted, revealing a demonic expression beneath the divine exterior. The angel screamed at her to come near. Terrified, Nia screamed for help, her voice echoing through the void. Back in the real world, Steelback struggled desperately to free himself from the fallen logs. He could see that Sanctified Fall was about to attack Nia's physical body. Just as the bird lunged toward her, a mace smashed directly into its face, sending it flying away. Slimy had arrived in time, saving Nia at the last possible moment. Without hesitation, Slimy launched a relentless barrage of attacks with the mace, striking again and again. The bird's body was pummeled continuously, leaving it no chance to counter or recover. Nia snapped back to her senses and immediately recognized the weapon. She realized it belonged to Carter. Slimy had layered multiple skills together, wielding the mace with remarkable ease. His control over his cytoplasm had reached an astonishing level, making his movements even more fluid and flexible than ordinary hands. Using the elastic properties of his body, Slimy had effectively transformed the mace into a slime mold meteor hammer. If his stone projectiles were bullets, then this weapon was nothing less than a cannon. With a single powerful swing, Slimy shattered all the wooden logs, trapping Steelback, finally freeing him. Afterward, he retracted his tendril and stored the mace back inside his body. Nia thanked him sincerely for saving their lives and gently picked him up in her arms. She said that she felt a familiar sensation from him, which made Slimy feel happy that she remembered him at all. However, his brief moment of joy was shattered when Nia suggested that he must be Carter, believing that Carter's soul had possessed the slime's body to come save her. Despite the confusion, Steelback remained alert. They all turned their attention as Miwu's body suddenly twitched on the ground. The corrupted monster slowly rose again, letting out a horrifying scream. Nia asked Steelback if he was still able to fight, offering to transfer her mana to support him. Meanwhile, Slimy had already begun preparing. He extended his tendrils underground using his search skill, forming a wide net beneath the battlefield. Activating Pulsation Max, he moved rapidly through the network, positioning himself carefully. When Sanctified Fall took the bait and attacked Slimy's main body, Slimy slipped behind it and smashed it with the mace. The monster howled in agony and lunged toward Slimy, trying to devour him. At that exact moment, Steelback charged in from the side, slamming into the bird and forcing it away. Seizing the opening, Slimy swung the mace with full force, launching it using plasma cannon. The weapon tore straight through the monster's body and slammed into a tree behind it, embedding itself deep within the trunk. Slimy immediately realized he had used too much force and struggled to pull the weapon back. After the battle, Nia stood quietly over little Miwu's lifeless body, sadness clearly visible on her face. She then turned to Slimy and said that she remembered him, the small monster she had met at the campfire a few hours earlier. She also mentioned that she had seen him before through Miwu's visions. Curious, she asked whether he had been following her all along and wondered if he felt some special affection toward her. If that was the case, she believed their compatibility must be very high. Slimy felt a surge of excitement, thinking that this might finally be his chance. Nia asked him whether he would like to form a contract with her, activating her Pet Pact skill and promising that she would take good care of him. But just then, a warning window appeared in Slimy's system. It stated that if he signed a servant contract with a human, he would permanently lose access to the system. He would be forced to choose either the system or a master, but never both. Slimy thought that the system was useful and undeniably powerful, capable of offering growth, survival, and countless conveniences. But deep down, it could never compare to the fiery heroine of a classic, hot-blooded shonen story. When he thought about it seriously, the choice felt almost laughably obvious. Numbers, windows, and cold prompts could never match the warmth of a living person standing beside him. His thoughts immediately began to spiral out of control, running wild as his imagination painted a vivid future. He imagined himself and Nia training together under the bright sun, running along golden beaches while waves crashed beside them. They would face endless trials side by side, growing stronger with every battle, like perfect partners straight out of a heavily copyrighted game about pocket monsters. In that fantasy, he wasn't just a companion, he was her monster, fighting proudly for her, trusting her completely. Battle after battle, dungeon after dungeon, they climbed higher together. Nia pushed herself relentlessly, and Slimy matched her every step, evolving alongside her through hardship and victory. In time, Nia was declared the champion master contestant, her name echoing across nations. A worldwide craze for monster taming erupted, and she became the strongest rookie adventurer, an idol with an overwhelming fan following. Wherever she went, people spoke her name with admiration and awe. In that dreamlike future, Slimy imagined himself fusing with her, becoming her most stylish and powerful outfit, something unique that no one else could replicate. Through his slime-shaping abilities, he evolved even further, eventually transforming into a handsome man who could finally stand beside her as an equal. Together, they challenged and defeated the Great Demon King, ending the Age of Darkness and restoring peace to the world. After the final battle, they married, settled down, will have dozens of kids and lived happily ever after, spending their days quietly with Steelback always nearby. To Slimy, system-based stories already felt like an overused cliché. If he truly had to choose, then of course he would choose a beautiful girl as his master. In fact, he had already plotted the next 100 episodes of this story inside his head, complete with dramatic arcs, emotional reunions, and legendary final battles. Slimy had made up his mind. He was ready to choose Nia over the system. But just as he was about to accept the contract, something horrifying happened. Nia's head was suddenly cut clean in half, falling beside them while her arm was still holding Slimy. For a single frozen moment, the world stopped. The sight shattered Slimy's thoughts completely, and little Steelback stood motionless beside him. Shock overtook them both before it twisted into uncontrollable rage. The corpse of Miwu had carried out the attack. It now stood before them, having used Abyss Magic, Circle of Wind's demise. From the severed neck, a gut-wrenching sight unfolded as a new head began forming in its place. The emerging head looked disturbingly human, though stripped of skin, exposing raw flesh beneath. Little Steelback reacted instantly, Consumed by rage, he charged straight at the monster without hesitation. Slimy shouted for him to come back, begging him not to act recklessly, still unable to comprehend how the head he had smashed earlier was growing back as if nothing had happened. Before Steelback could reach it, the monster calmly lifted a single finger and pointed it toward him, activating another spell. Using abyss magic, atavistic ray, the creature forcibly transformed Steelback's body, devolving him into a small lizard before throwing him aside. The frightened lizard scrambled away into the forest. Slimy stood frozen in place. This monster was no longer just the owl, it now possessed the terrifying ability to cause devolution. The human-like head finished forming completely and twisted into an irritated expression, complaining about how troublesome everything had become. It called Kidoyalawa useless, mocking him for consuming so many resources and still failing to handle even such a minor matter. The voice then ridiculed the old man from the Holy See as well, stating that none of this would have happened if they had listened from the beginning. The one controlling the corpse revealed herself as Merlin, the guildmaster of the Blue Hat Guild and one of the 7 holy knights of the church. Clearly annoyed that she had to personally clean up this mess, Merlin glanced up at the sky and realized that the imprisonment barrier was already gone. Still, she had no intention of letting Gon escape. Activating Tempest Wing, she shot into the sky at incredible speed and vanished from sight. Slimy was left alone, standing beside Nia's lifeless body. Slowly, the realization sank, and it had been another human using magic to transfer their consciousness into the owl's corpse. And because he was too weak, he had been completely ignored. The feeling was painfully familiar, exactly the same as when he had first arrived in this world. Too many things had happened too quickly, leaving him no time to properly process them. Merlin had killed the master he was about to choose, meaning the contract was never completed. He wondered if he should feel relieved that his life had been spared. But he couldn't. His friend was dead, and yet he was still alive, thinking about survival. Until he personally killed that monster, he could not call himself a man. With rage burning inside him, Slimy swore to smash the enemy's head with his cytoplasm and rushed through the forest to hunt the monster down. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the swamp, Gon's system informed him that the mana loan repayment was complete. It warned him about his critically low health, 789 out of 2.8 million, and his severely damaged arm, which required immediate treatment. Gon told the system to stop stating the obvious. He had nothing left to give. He ordered it to continue attempting contact with the transmigrator summoned by the Hope coordinate. The system replied that long-distance communication was impossible before the initial connection was fully established, and advised him to keep moving to find a stronger signal. Gon knew the Holy See would send more people to clean up the situation. If they arrived, escape would be impossible. He had to locate the new transmigrator and leave the swamp immediately. As he moved through the forest, he suddenly stepped on something slimy and yellow. Slimy's search skill had finally detected a target. Mistaking Gon for the long-necked monster, Slimy attacked without hesitation, swinging the mace with full force and smashing it straight into Gon's head. The resistance surprised him. It felt like armor. The figure's appearance also seemed wrong. Seeing the target collapse, Slimy realized his mistake. It wasn't the monster. He had confused Gon for part of the creature because of the tassels on his helmet. He apologized hastily, blaming the poor lighting and complaining that Gon's flashy helmet made it hard to see. Before he could say more, Gon grabbed him. Recognizing Hawk's weapon and smelling Naya's blood on Slimy, Gon accused him of killing his guild companions, mistaking him for a member of the church. At that exact moment, both of their system windows appeared simultaneously, announcing that the connection was successful. Gon instantly realized that Slimy was a transmigrator. And Slimy, staring at Gon's system window, finally understood that he was not the only transmigrator in this world. Thank you for watching till the very end. If you enjoyed this episode breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support really helps the channel grow. Gohan explained that to fight against the evil church, he had activated the noble phantasm known as Hope Coordinate and summoned Slimy into this world. Slimy reflected that his arrival in this world had been inexplicable at first, but it turned out to be Gohan's doing. The humans he had met earlier were all members of Gohan's guild. Even so, with his current strength, he could not even save a girl named Nia, which made him question how he could possibly be of any help. Gohan told him there was no need to rush. When he himself first transmigrated to this world, he had been just as clueless. Only after awakening the system and following its guidance step by step to complete quests did he slowly grow stronger. Slimy pointed out that at least Gohan was human and possessed magic power to learn magic, while he himself was merely a single-celled organism. Surviving until now had not been easy for him. Gohan then removed his mask and admitted that, to be honest, he was not human either, which was the real reason he always wore armor. Slimy wondered what Gohan truly was. Gohan revealed part of his face and stated that, in this world, he belonged to a race loathed and hated by humans, goblins. Slimy imagined a goblin's face and described them as green, humanoid creatures driven by base instincts, greedy, irritable, aggressive, mostly living underground, excelling at mining and construction, and being short, ugly, and weak. He remarked that Gohan was not much better off and found the situation pitiful. Slimy then thought seriously that if he looked like that, he would rather remain a cute slime mold. At that moment, Gohan fully removed his mask and admitted that this appearance indeed caused many difficulties when moving around the human world. Seeing this, Slimy was completely shocked and felt it was incredibly cool, complaining that it was unfair. Gohan replied that he did not find it cool at all. If humans discovered his identity, he would certainly be driven out. In contrast, Slimy's small body was far more convenient for moving through towns. Slimy protested loudly, questioning why the difference in character modeling was so vast. Gohan explained that the 100-style guild he founded aimed to eliminate barriers and promote harmony among all life in the world. However, no one in the guild knew his true identity. He then cut the topic short, saying it was not the time to dwell on the past. He revealed that the church had sent Merlin, the most ruthless of the 7 holy knights, and that they needed to hurry. Slimy wondered what they needed to hurry to do. Gohan declared that he would synchronize all the magic and combat skills he had learned so far to Slimy, and with that, he activated his system. Slimy's system announced that the connection was successful and that transmission had started at 1%. Slimy was stunned, realizing that, if this was possible, he would be able to reach the heavens in a single step. Gohan then explained that he had originally thought the Pope was merely suspicious and that his past actions had indeed benefited the common people. Because of that, he went along with the situation and accepted the quest, believing it would bring him closer to the truth. However, from the very first step, he had already fallen into a death trap prepared for him. That battle burned out everything Gohan had, but the trump cards accumulated by the church were also completely destroyed by him. He stated that the road ahead would only grow more dangerous, and that he needed Slimy to fight alongside him. Slimy questioned what exactly the church and the Pope had done to make Gohan hate them so deeply, wondering if it was just another cliché ambition like ruling the world again. Gohan clarified that the world was already under the church's rule. What the church wanted now was to sacrifice all life in this world as energy, open a passage, and send those rent-seekers to ascend to a higher universe. Slimy reacted in shock at the idea of ascension and commented on how extreme villains had become, struggling to understand how they planned to sacrifice all life. Gohan then began explaining that everything started from the moment he first transmigrated to this world. As already known, he arrived as a goblin cub, the lowest ranked one, inside a dark, abandoned mine. He grew up by catching bugs and scavenging food scraps left behind by higher-ranking goblins. To avoid starving to death, he even gnawed on human limbs that the goblins had captured. When he was 5 years old, the system finally awakened. After gaining power, Gohan personally ended all the sins within that filthy mine. He rescued the female heroes who had been imprisoned as breeding machines and tortured until their minds collapsed. He helped them start new lives in a remote wasteland. However, due to long-term imprisonment by the goblins, they all suffered from sex addiction. Fortunately, Gohan possessed a racial special skill known as dual cultivation. Upon hearing this, Slimy commented that although his body was a slime mold, he believed his soul had always been human. He suddenly reacted to the mention of a racial special skill and compared it to his own ability called decomposition, realizing that dual cultivation was something entirely different. Gohan admitted that he envied Slimy's decomposition skill for its convenience. His own dual cultivation consumed a great deal of time and stamina. Every time he copulated with female adventurers of different professions, one of his attributes would level up. With a female warrior, his maximum HP increased. With a female mage, his maximum MP or elemental compatibility increased. In addition, he gained a large amount of experience. By relying on this dual cultivation skill, He built a strong foundation for both physical and magical cultivation, started families with those girls, and then decided to head to the royal capital to give them a better life. Slimy remarked that it felt like Gohan was simply showing off. Gohan continued by stating that going to the royal capital was the worst mistake of his life, and that because of it, his wives and child had all suffered. At that moment, Miwoo suddenly appeared behind Gohan and announced that he had found him. As Gohan turned around, Miwoo immediately activated a skill called Circle of Wind's Demise. The attack created an enormous crater-like pit, and Miwoo stood calmly at its center as the scene shifted into sudden chaos. Miwoo stood in a twisted, unnatural posture and smirked, speaking to herself as she identified Gohan's true form as a goblin and wondered how a goblin could possess such extraordinary talent. She expressed her desire to capture him alive for vivisection and deep research, while coldly noting that it was a pity the Pope had ordered his complete death. She then noticed that Gohan was still alive, becoming stunned yet playfully amazed, and remarked on his survival while showing curiosity about how he had killed Kedoyelawa, a being with an undying body and adaptive power. At that moment, a system window appeared before Gohan, warning him that his symbiotic armor was critically damaged, the battle situation was unfavorable, and retreat was advised. Gohan, barely able to stand with his body covered in wounds and bruises, grew frustrated and angrily rejected the system's instructions, insisting that he knew what to do. Miwoo laughed playfully at first, then realized Gohan was speaking to a system only he could see. Grinning, she mocked the unseen system and expressed her desire to seize Gohan's body to inherit and research it. Gohan, filled with anger, accused Miwoo of creating Kedoyelawa's undying chimera body through cruel experiments that harmed countless lives, calling her an inhuman devil and the church's obedient hound. Miwoo smirked in response, dismissing his words about humanity and implying that such concepts were meaningless and not worth acknowledging. Suddenly, stones were thrown at Miwoo from behind. She caught them easily and noticed they were coated in slime, realizing Slimy had thrown them. Slimy trembled violently, drenched in sweat from fear. Miwoo gave Slimy a mocking, contemptuous gaze and belittled him as a pitiful, low-level monster, suggesting he was all Gohan had left. Slimy became paralyzed with terror, unable to move, feeling completely exposed and seen through. Miwoo then noticed that Gohan was no longer where he had been standing and realized he had escaped, sighing with playful annoyance while questioning where he could possibly run. Suddenly, Gohan attacked from behind, revealing that retreat had never crossed his mind, and struck her using physical arts, weak point break. Miwoo was visibly amazed but instantly blocked the attack with her abyss magic, Geometric Inferno, engulfing the entire area in flames. Slimy believed Gohan had been burned alive and cried in despair, hoping it was not the end. Miwoo admitted that physical arts were indeed her weakness, but declared she would not allow Gohan to come close again. At that moment, Gohan emerged from within the fire and revealed that weak point break also worked on magic. He moved faster than Miwoo could react, extended his hand, seized her, and declared he had caught her, glaring dangerously as he vowed that even if he died, he would drag her down to the grave with him.